All right, let's dive right in. The story we're about to unpack, it sounds like something straight out of a spy thriller, right? But here's the crazy part. It's all true. We're talking about a very real, very secret CIA program designed to do one thing: control the human mind. Its name? Project MKUltra. And boom. This quote, this is where the whole thing just blew up in public. I mean, just try to put yourself there. It's 1977, you turn on the news, and there's Senator Ted Kennedy dropping an absolute bombshell. The U.S. government has been secretly drugging its own citizens for decades. This was the crack in the dam, and everything, all the stories of power, paranoia, and some seriously terrifying science came pouring out. So, you gotta ask, right? What in the world was Project MKUltra? How could something like this even happen? Well, that's exactly what we're gonna dig into. So let's get into the shocking revelation. The weird thing is, the story of MKUltra doesn't really start at the beginning. It starts at the end, when it all came crashing down. For 20 years, this thing operated in the shadows, completely secret, until, the whole Watergate scandal created this atmosphere of panic, and suddenly all these dark secrets started getting dragged out into the open. Okay, so here's the official definition. And seriously, just listen to these words. An illegal CIA human experimentation program. The goal? To figure out how to alter behavior and, control minds. We are literally talking about a government program trying to figure out how to take apart someone's personality and put it back together differently. It's just chilling. And this timeline, wow, it really puts things into perspective. This wasn't some short-lived rogue operation. This ran for 20 years. And think about this. When the plug was finally pulled in '73, the very first thing the CIA director did was order every single file destroyed. Burn it all. It was only by a complete fluke that a congressional committee found anything to expose a couple of years later. So the billion-dollar question is, why? Why would they do this? And the answer, in a nutshell, is Cold War paranoia. The CIA was absolutely terrified. They were hearing these stories about Soviets and Chinese communists using brainwashing on American prisoners of war from Korea. So their response wasn't just to fight fire with fire. No. Their plan was to build a bigger, scarier fire of their own. All right, let's go inside Project MKUltra. So what were they actually doing in there? Well, the scale of this thing it's just staggering. I mean, look at this. The ambition here is just wild. They wanted a perfect truth serum to use on spies. They wanted to figure out how to manipulate foreign leaders. They were even trying to create a real-life Manchurian candidate, a mind-controlled assassin. And this was no small-time operation. We're talking over 150 different sub-projects spread across more than 80 institutions. And get this, we're talking about universities, hospitals, prisons. They were all in on it, whether they knew the whole story or not. Okay, so that's the what. Now for the how. How were they trying to pull this off? What were the actual methods they were using on people? And this is where things take a really, really dark turn. Yeah, I mean, just take a look at their playbook. You've got everything from hypnosis and sensory deprivation to verbal and sexual abuse, high-powered electroshocks. I mean, let's call it what it is. This is torture. But out of all these horrific tools, they had a favorite. One thing they became absolutely obsessed with: psychoactive drugs. And the drug that was front and center for pretty much the whole thing? LSD. Now, to the CIA, this wasn't some tool for expanding consciousness. Oh, no. To them, its reality-shattering effects made it a weapon. They thought it could be the key to literally cracking open the human mind and taking control. And if you need any proof of just how all in they were on this, check out this number: $240,000 in the early 1950s. That's what the CIA paid to buy the entire world's supply of LSD. They literally bought all of it. They tried to corner the market on what they believed was the ultimate mind weapon. And it wasn't just happening on U.S. soil either. Some of the most horrifying experiments actually took place in Canada. They were run by a guy named Dr. Donald Ewan Cameron, and he had this theory he called psychic driving. The basic idea: you could completely wipe a person's mind clean and then reprogram it from scratch. So here's how this nightmare worked. A patient would come in for something pretty common, like anxiety. Next thing they know, they're being blasted with electroshock therapy at like 30 or 40 times the normal strength. Then they'd be put into a drug-induced coma, sometimes for months, while a speaker played the same recorded messages over and over and over. The result? A lot of these people suffered permanent brain damage. Some couldn't even talk anymore. Others forgot their own families. It's just devastating. And this right here brings us to the most important part of this whole story, the human cost. Because this wasn't some abstract experiment in a lab. These were real people, and the price they paid was absolutely catastrophic. You know, this quote from a CIA officer at the time, it really says everything you need to know. People who could not fight back. They knew exactly who they were going after. They were targeting the most vulnerable people they could find, people who had no power to say no. And that strategy is crystal clear when you look at who their subjects were. Mental patients, prisoners, drug addicts. But it gets even crazier. They were dosing their own soldiers who had no clue what was happening. They even tested on each other, slipping LSD into the drinks of fellow CIA agents just to see what would happen. Nobody was off limits. But if there's one story that really brings the tragic human cost of MKUltra into sharp focus, it's the story of a man named Dr. Frank Olson. He was a brilliant Army biochemist working on biological weapons for the CIA. And by all accounts, he was starting to have a real crisis of conscience over the work he was doing. And then one night, he fell from a hotel window in New York City, 13th floor. For decades, the official story was simple: suicide. But as you can probably guess, the real story is a whole lot darker. Okay, so here's what we know now. Fact: 9 days before his death, one of his own CIA colleagues secretly slipped LSD into his drink. Fact: his family never believed he took his own life. Decades later, they finally got his body exhumed. And what did the new autopsy find? Shocking evidence of head trauma. The conclusion? He was likely knocked unconscious before he fell. The cause of death was officially reclassified as a homicide. The Frank Olson story, it's like a perfect, horrifying snapshot of the entire program. And it also shows you exactly how far the agency was willing to go to bury its secrets. So fast forward to 1973. The Watergate scandal is exploding, and Washington is in chaos. The CIA is getting very nervous that investigators are going to start poking around in their closets. So the director at the time, Richard Helms, issues a very simple, very direct order. Destroy all of the MKUltra files. Every last one. Erase it from history. And you know what? He almost did it. They almost got away with it completely. But then, a stroke of unbelievable luck. Around 20,000 pages of documents survived the purge. Why? Because somebody had accidentally filed them in the wrong place, in a building with financial records. And that one little mistake, that was the key that unlocked this entire nightmare. And really, that's where this story leaves us. Think about it. The only reason we know anything about one of the most disturbing programs in U.S. history is because of a filing mistake. We'll probably never know the true scale of it all. How many victims were there? What other twisted experiments were they running? It all went up in smoke, which leaves you with one final chilling question. What secrets died in the fires that day?